Hey guys, tonight we're descending into one of the oldest and most haunting myths ever told. You're walking barefoot beneath moonlight, your path strewn with crushed rose petals and burning myrrh, each step a whisper into ancient soil. You're surrounded by pillars carved with the names of gods, the scent of incense clinging to your hair. The air is heavy, velvet thick with anticipation. Somewhere deep below, a door begins to stir. This is the story of a goddess who stepped into death not by mistake, but by choice. Her name is Inanna, Lady of Heaven, Queen of the Morning Star, and tonight you'll follow her into the shadows, past the gates of the underworld, into a myth that shaped empires, harvests, and heartbreaks. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. And hey, post your location and local time in the comments. It's always magical to know who's dreaming alongside you. Now dim the lights and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself in Inanna's garden, lush, sacred, and unnervingly perfect. Palm fronds sway without breeze, lotuses bloom on cue, and doves flutter like background dancers in a perfume ad. But tonight, something feels off. You catch her at a rare pause, standing barefoot in her courtyard, brows furrowed, eyes far away. Not even her golden lions dare approach. This garden is no ordinary grove. It's the Inanna temple complex in Uruk's seat of Inanna's worship, and one of the first monumental cities in human history. Historians still argue whether the site served primarily as palace temple or bureaucratic headquarters, honestly judging by the linen-wrapped tax scrolls stacked near the pomegranate trees. It might have been all three. Inanna walks among the statues, some of them are of her, which is only mildly awkward, and you follow at a respectful pace. She touches each one, murmuring something under her breath. Maybe a blessing, maybe a warning. You pretend not to hear. She pauses at a mirror made of polished obsidian. Her reflection stares back, unblinking, impossibly composed. Her robe shimmers like crushed lapis. Her crown glints with tiny stars. And still she seems unsatisfied. You notice her shoulders tense, like someone bracing for a punch or a plunge. Something's missing, she mutters. You could point out that as the literal Queen of Heaven, she's got a pretty decent resume, but you wisely keep that to yourself. Goddesses don't always appreciate sarcasm. Some scholars claim that Inanna's descent wasn't about death at all, that it was a political allegory, a metaphor for power struggles among priestesses. But as she stares toward the southern horizon, her gaze piercing beyond life and light, it doesn't feel like metaphor, it feels personal. The garden shifts subtly, birds fall silent, a chill settles into your bones though the air remains warm. Somewhere beyond the river a drum sounds once, then stops. Inanna turns to you suddenly as if she'd forgotten you were there. "I need to go," she says simply. "You blink. Where?" She smiles, and it's the kind of smile that makes you want to both kneel and run. "To see my sister." Your mouth opens, closes. A dozen questions huddle on your tongue, none brave enough to leap. She answers anyway. "The underworld." Your stomach tightens. The realm of Kur, ruled by Erishkigal, land of no return. Not exactly a weekend getaway. You try to recall if there's a return policy on divine mortality. The decision is made, you can feel it. She glides back toward her inner chamber, flanked by doves and the distant wail of a temple flute. You follow, still dazed, your sandals scraping over smooth onyx. Inside, a sacred chest waits. It's older than Uruk, maybe older than time. As she opens it, the scent of cedar and something sharper ozone ambition fills the air. She begins to gather objects one by one. First, there may the sacred powers that define Sumerian civilization. These are divine blueprints, concepts like truth, fertility, warfare, even beer. You know the essentials. Inanna inherited some, stole others, and negotiated for the rest. She wears them like accessories, a double-stranded necklace of authority, a breastplate that hums with law, eyeliner sharp enough to rewrite fate. Second, her rod and ring, a symbol of judgment and boundary. It's essentially the goddess version of carrying both a sword and a gavel. No pressure. Third, her crown. Not a dainty tiara, mind you, but a horned headdress that screams, "Take me seriously or get smote." She pauses before donning the last piece, her cloak of transformation woven from midnight and peacock feathers. A fringe fact for you: peacocks didn't exist in Mesopotamia, but scholars believe Inanna's cloak may have referenced mythical birds or imported silk. Or maybe she just had excellent taste. She dresses slowly, ritualistically, like someone preparing for either coronation or execution. Her mirror watches in silence. So do you. Finally she turns. She's radiant, terrifying, unstoppable, and completely alone. Except for you. The garden gate opens without a touch. Inanna steps forward, and you trail behind into the night toward the edge of the world. Above, the stars blink nervously. Below, something ancient begins to stir. You walk behind her down a narrow path, lined with reeds and silence. The moon hangs low and wide like an eye that sees too much. The air smells of clay and river silt, and somewhere far off, a jackal laughs. You try not to take that personally. Inanna doesn't speak. Her feet move with purpose, stirring up motes of ancient dust. You notice she's holding something tightly wrapped in cloth. Her knuckles are white. The package hums faintly, as if containing a very small thunderstorm or a very large temper tantrum. She stops beneath a half-buried ziggurat so old even the bricks look confused about their function. Here lies the secret gate to Ganzir, the mouth of the underworld. No fanfare, no signage. Just a hollow silence and the overwhelming sense that this is a terrible idea. "Inanna," you whisper. She doesn't look at you. Instead, she unwraps the cloth bundle and lays the contents on a flat slab of stone. 7 sacred objects. Each one glows faintly as if recalling a time when it ruled empires, the Shugura crown, shaped with golden horns, symbol of divinity. The lapis earrings, twin constellations, meant to hypnotize. The golden necklace strung with seeds of civilization. The breastplate etched with the me of battle and diplomacy. The rod and ring symbols of judgment and cosmic contracts. The ankle bracelet said to make even sandstorms bow. The royal robe dark as crushed night and embroidered with lightning. Each one represents a fragment of her power, her divinity layered like onion skin or bureaucracy. You wonder if this is confidence or madness. Probably both. Historians still argue whether Inanna's descent was a ritual reenacted by priestesses or an original myth to explain seasonal death and rebirth. Either way, it's not your place to argue with a goddess about fashion choices. She adorns herself piece by piece, breathing in sharply with each new weight. These aren't accessories, they're armor, magic, identity. A wind rises as the last piece falls into place. The earth seems to pulse once like a heartbeat or a warning. Then she steps forward, and the gate appears, not all at once, of course. It would be too polite for that. Instead, it peels itself out of the shadows, a colossal doorway made of basalt and grief. The lintel is carved with symbols that twitch when you look too long. The hinges are thick with rust and something stickier. This is Janzir, the Great Gate, entrance to Kur, the underworld. It is not a place for mortals, and honestly not a great choice for immortals either. But Inanna doesn't hesitate. She raises her hand and knocks, once. The sound echoes like thunder trapped in a tomb. Somewhere beyond the stone gears grind. Something ancient shuffles into motion. A slit opens in the gate. A pair of eyes, pale lidless, regard her without blinking. This is Nettie, the gatekeeper, also known as the guy who's definitely not paid enough for this nonsense. He doesn't look thrilled. Inanna, he drawls, voice gravel thick. Queen of heaven, daughter of the moon. Yes, she replies, calm as glass. Nettie squints. You know this is the underworld, right? I'm aware. He sighs. People usually come here under different circumstances, like, for example, being dead. I seek an audience with my sister, Erishkigal. Nettie raises a brow as if trying to remember the last time someone voluntarily sought out the Queen of the Dead. Probably never. Reason for visit, Inanna pauses. It is personal. Now Nettie's been around. He's seen titans fall and ghosts weep. But this is new. He disappears without another word, leaving you and Inanna to enjoy the ambience, sulphurous air, distant moaning and the occasional subterranean belch. A few minutes, or possibly eons, pass before the gate groans open. Not wide, just enough for her to slip through. You squeeze in behind her heart, doing a slow tap dance. Beyond the gate is nothingness, not darkness, not shadow, just void. The path ahead seems made of woven fog, and yet Inanna walks it like it's solid marble. As you descend a fringe, tidbit bubbles to mind some Mesopotamian clay tablets refer to the underworld as a place where souls eat dust and drink mud. Not exactly an all-inclusive resort. Around you the walls shimmer in and out of existence. Shapes float past whispers, with faces regrets with teeth. You cling to Inanna's shadow like it's a lifeline. At the second gate, Nettie appears again. He gestures. "Remove your crown," he says. You flinch, bold ask. But Inanna doesn't argue. She hands it over, head held high. Her shimmering aura dims a fraction. Each gate repeats the process. One item surrendered, one piece of herself removed. At the third gate, her earrings. At the fourth, her necklace. At the fifth, her breastplate. At the sixth, the rod and ring. At the seventh, her robe. By the time she passes through the last threshold, she stands completely exposed, not just naked but divested, vulnerable. You can't help but glance at her face. She isn't afraid. She's ready. And now, you are in the underworld proper, the land of no return, where time folds like damp linen and memory drips through the ceiling like wax. Inanna steps forward, stripped of all divine pretense and yet somehow more godlike than ever. And somewhere ahead, her sister waits. The underworld is not what you expected. It's not fire and torment, nor an endless field of bones. It's grey, muted, like someone turned the world's saturation knob all the way down. The air tastes like wet stone and the hush of things forgotten. You step carefully behind Inanna. The ground feels soft, like walking across ancient ashes. Shadows curl at the edge of your vision, but they never fully take shape. Occasionally, something brushes past your shoulder, cool and indifferent. Inanna presses forward, unflinching. She walks as if she still wears her crown, though now she wears nothing at all. Her skin is luminous in the half-light, glowing faintly like embers under snow. Each step is deliberate. Each breath a statement. Ahead, Something massive looms an archway carved from black salt. It pulses slightly as though alive. And just beyond it, the throne room of the dead. You cross the threshold and the atmosphere changes. The air thickens, presses against your lungs. A deep hum fills your ears, a sound too low to be heard, yet too loud to ignore. And there, at the far end of a long stone chamber, sits Erishkigal. She does not look up. She slumps in her throne, chiseled from obsidian and regret. Her skin is pale as river clay. Her hair spills like shadows onto her shoulders. And her eyes, well, they're currently closed, not in peace, not in sleep, but in pain. She breathes in sharp bursts, moaning, trembling. Is she in labor? Historians still argue whether this moment reflects a symbolic birthing of death itself or a literal cosmic event. Either way, it's unnerving. Her attendants are nowhere to be seen. The chamber is littered with overturned goblets, shards of bone, and what may or may not be a mummified squirrel. You're not here to judge. You try to shrink back into the gloom, but Inanna steps forward radiant and bare. Erishkigal's eyes snap open. They are red-rimmed, black-pupilled, and ancient beyond time. And when they lock onto Inanna's, everything freezes, the temperature drops, the chamber grows still. Somewhere a ghost hiccups. Then Erishkigal stands. It's a slow creaking movement like an avalanche waking up. Her presence fills the room not through grandeur, but gravity, as if sorrow itself learned to walk. You came, she says, voice like sandpaper, dragged across marble. I did, Inanna replies. Erishkigal laughs, and it's not a happy sound. It's brittle, unhinged, like someone who's been left off too many divine group texts. You brought no offering, no tribute, no warning. She steps forward. Why would the Queen of Heaven come here to mock me? Inanna doesn't flinch. I came to understand. A long silence. Then Erishkigal's lips curl into something between a sneer and a sob. Too late. Before you can process what's happening, Erishkigal raises her hand, and Inanna falls. No ceremony, no dramatic lightning bolt. Just a flick of a wrist and a collapse like a puppet whose strings have been cut. She hits the floor with a soft, final sound. And then she's gone. Not gone like she vanished. Gone like a star that stopped burning. Like a prayer that ends mid-sentence. Erishkigal breathes heavily, her hand trembling. Then cold as a butcher's whisper, she commands, hang her. On the hook. Two shadow things glide from the walls. They carry Inanna's lifeless form to the back of the chamber, where a great iron hook hangs from the ceiling. With practiced indifference, they pierce her and hoist her body up. She dangles there, divine skin now grey and waxy. Her limbs sway slightly like she's caught in a breeze that doesn't exist. You stagger back. Even the ghosts seem uneasy. This wasn't supposed to happen. Or maybe it was. A fringe historical tidbit comes to mind. Some versions of this myth suggest Inanna willingly submitted to death to gain knowledge or even to steal Erishkigal's power. Like a divine heist with extremely poor timing. But now there is no movement, no noise, just Erishkigal, seated again, staring at her sister's suspended form, face unreadable. 3 days and 3 nights pass, or maybe they don't. Time here doesn't follow logic. It folds in on itself, chews its tail, then burps out silence. Still in the land above, life stutters. Temples fall quiet. Fires go out. Lovers stop touching. Wheat wilts in the fields, and goats look around awkwardly, unsure what to do with themselves. Priestesses sob into empty urns. Sleep refuses to visit even the most exhausted. Dreams wander lost through the sky, looking for their queen. The balance is broken, and you still down here stare at the hooked body of a goddess once radiant, now reduced to something resembling driftwood. You want to cry, but the underworld doesn't allow such luxuries. Instead, you wait, with Erishkigal, with ghosts, with the knowledge that something must change, or everything will unravel. Above, a voice finally stirs. Ninshubur, Inanna's loyal servant, is calling for help. And the gods, they're not exactly answering their celestial phones. You're still here, somehow. The underworld doesn't seem interested in letting you go, and honestly, it doesn't seem to remember you arrived. The air is heavier now, like you're inhaling sorrow itself. Inanna's body hangs motionless on the hook. Her skin has gone from pale to pearl grey to something less poetic. 3 days, 3 nights. It's a wonder time even ticks down here, but far above in the land of the living, the clocks are panicking. You drift upward for a moment, not bodily, but like a thought escaping the gloom. And there, in a sunlit courtyard in Ninshubur, kneels at the altar. Her clothes are torn in ritual mourning. Her hair is unbound wild with grief. She is a vision of holy desperation. And she is not playing around. Queen of heaven, mistress of the sky, open the gate, she wails. No one answers. So she moves to the shrine of Enlil, god of wind and authority, basically the celestial CEO. "Oh, great Enlil, your daughter is trapped in the underworld," she cries. "Do something." In Enlil sighs, he's busy managing star charts and mid-level cosmic projects. "She went willingly," he mutters. "You know how she gets." Wow! Divine bureaucracy at its finest. So Ninshubur marches on to Nanna the Moon, god Inanna's actual father. Maybe he'll help. He blinks sleepily. "She didn't tell me she was going," he says. Classic Inanna. Ninshubur almost throws a sandal at him. Finally, she goes to Enki, the god of water, wisdom, invention, and suspiciously clever solutions. He lives deep within the Abzu, the freshwater abyss, a sort of cosmic basement full of fish secrets and probably old tax receipts. Enki listens, quietly, kindly. You can almost see the wheels turning behind his aquamarine eyes. "Inanna is in danger," he murmurs. "Yes," Ninshubur whispers, "she is dead." Enki pauses, then claps his hands and goes, "All right, time to make some weird little creatures." You blink. This is where things get interesting. From the dirt beneath his fingernails and the sacred waters of the Abzu, Enki molds 2 beings, neither male nor female. Genderless, boneless, fearless, about the size of large squirrels, but significantly more mystical. He names them Kugara and Galatur. Now, you've probably never met a god-made dirt creature with a mission statement, but these 2 are focused. Their instructions are clear. Go into the underworld, find Inanna, don't eat or drink anything down there. Oh, and when you see Erishkigal, just listen to her. Mirror her emotions. It's divine emotional intelligence, or advanced therapy, or both. Enki hands them the bread of life and the water of life, bundled in what looks like a celestial lunchbox. "You'll know when to use these," he says. And with that, they descend. You're back in the underworld before you know it, right as the gate creaks open for these strange little messengers. Even Nettie, the gatekeeper, looks puzzled. "We've got interns now," he mutters, stepping aside. Kugara and Galatur float inside, barely making a sound. They are glowing faintly like starlight through fog. They approach Erishkigal's throne, and, wow, she's not doing great. Erishkigal is screaming, wailing, bent backward on her throne, in something between rage and agony. Her skin blisters and chills, her hair coils like serpents around her face. "She is me," she cries to no one. She grips her belly. What is she birthing? Pain shadows. A new god. Historians still argue whether this scene is metaphorical or literal, and honestly, so do the ghosts. Now here's the twist. Kugara and Galatur do not offer advice, do not interfere, do not bring healing crystals. They just echo her. When she cries, they cry. When she gasps, they gasp. When she writhes, they mimic her pain. And for the first time in eternity, Erishkigal sees her own grief reflected back, not mocked, not judged, just shared. It breaks something inside her. She slumps forward exhausted, eyes glazed, and then in a voice far smaller than you imagined she possessed, she whispers, "Ask for a gift." Kugara and Galatur look at each other. No words are spoken. Then Galatur says gently, "We ask for the body of Inanna." The chamber goes still. Erishkigal stares at the hook, at the lifeless form, her sister, her mirror, her enemy, her wound, and she nods. "Take her," she says, "but one must take her place. There it is, the fine print, the catch, the price of rebirth." You watch as the dirt creatures lower Inanna's limp form from the hook. They gently pour the bread of life into her mouth, press the water of life to her lips, and Inanna gasps. Her body jolts, colour floods back into her skin, her eyes flutter open. She is alive. But something in her eyes is different, something deep, raw, like someone who's been to the bottom of the ocean and brought back the silence. She stands slowly. Naked, yes. But there is no shame. Only power. Old power. Like the kind that makes mountains bow and rivers remember their names. Kugara and Galatur lead her gently toward the first gate. But you hesitate. Because the price hasn't been paid. And the underworld never forgets a debt. You follow closely as Inanna walks toward the first gate, the very one she passed through days or eons ago when she was still radiant, still crowned, still whole. But now, something about her feels more dangerous in her nakedness than she ever did, cloaked in gold. She doesn't look back, not at Erishkigal, not at the hook, not even at you. You suspect that part of her is still hanging in that chamber, nailed to divine stillness. Nettie, the long-suffering gatekeeper, appears with a sigh like someone clocking back in after a very strange lunch break. She may leave, he says, but piece by piece. And so begins the reverse procession. At the seventh gate, her robe is returned. Its threads cling to her skin like shadowed memory. It no longer gleams. It seems heavier now, weighted by where she's been. At the sixth gate, the ankle bracelets are replaced. Their gentle clink sounds more like chains than bells. At the fifth, the rod and ring. But her grip is firmer now, less regal, more resolved. At the fourth, the breastplate of power. When she straps it across her chest, she winces. Armor doesn't sit the same after you've been flayed by silence. At the third, the necklace it seeds humming faintly, as if confused to be alive again. At the second, the lapis earrings. They shimmer, but the light behind her eyes is now something darker, something wider. And at the final gate, her crown. Nettie hands it back with a nod that might contain respect or mild terror. As she places it on her head, the air shifts, not with triumph, but with thundercloud patience, the kind that doesn't roar. It waits. She turns to Nettie. "We are not finished," she says quietly. Nettie doesn't respond, just vanishes. You and Inanna walk upward through a tunnel that smells of moss and old decisions. Each step hums with a growing awareness something's following you. Not in a creepy stalker way, more like obligation. As you climb higher, light begins to return. First as a grey haze, then a bruised dawn. The sound of birdsong filters in weak and stuttering like a musician testing their instrument after a long winter. Finally, you breach the threshold of the upper world. Uruk spreads before you a city blinking into morning. The temple priests are frozen mid-prayer. Livestock have gathered eerily silent. Even the wind holds its breath. Then someone sees her. The scream that follows isn't terror, it's awe. Raw, primal awe. As if the bones of the earth just remembered whom they serve. She walks into the city without announcement. Doves scatter in her wake. Children fall to their knees. Even the statues seem to lean in. But you're watching her. And you notice something subtle. She's not fully here. Her movements are sharp. Her eyes are scanning because she remembers the clause, one must take her place. And no one offered. Not yet. Suddenly the crowd surges forward. Priests and nobles throw themselves at her feet, begging for forgiveness, offering tokens, trinkets, awkward haiku, anything to prove loyalty. Inanna says nothing. Then she raises her hand. The crowd parts like a curtain yanked open. And there he is, Dumuzi, her lover, her shepherd, her ex, it's unclear. He lounges on her throne like a man completely unaware of how hard the gods just face-palmed. He's dressed well, silks, gold, zero remorse, holding a goblet of date wine like someone who just finished redecorating while his partner was away on business. You freeze. He looks up, sees her, and smiles. Oh, Dumuzi. Inanna's face does not move, but her entire body becomes still in a way that terrifies the breeze into changing direction. Remember when we said the underworld never forgets a debt? Well, it remembers this moment very, very clearly. Now, a fun historical aside, Dumuzi is often depicted as a vegetation god linked to spring fertility and sheep. His myths are tangled in cycles of death and rebirth, but in this version he's about to be very personally acquainted with the death part. Beloved, he says, standing with arms outstretched, you've returned the audacity, the lack of shoes, the sheer unbothered energy radiating from this man. And Inanna, she steps forward, still silent, still watching. She lifts one finger, and somewhere in the distance the ground opens. From beneath the earth a howl rises, a sound stitched from 10,000 forgotten funerals. The gala demons erupt from the soil like nightmares with great punctuality. Clawed, faceless, tireless, they do not eat, they do not sleep. And they've just received a name, Dumuzi. He turns to run. Too late, they swarm him, binding his wrists with invisible chains, pulling him toward the same gate Inanna just exited. But he fights, he begs, he sobs. And for a moment even Inanna's eyes flicker, just a flicker. Then she turns away. But this isn't the end of him, not yet. As he vanishes below, the question remains, was it justice or revenge? And who, if anyone, will weep enough to bargain his return? The city breathes again, barely. Dumuzi is gone, dragged, shrieking into the dark. The square is hushed, crowded with stunned nobles, priests, and villagers, clutching each other as though the ground might open again. Inanna stands in the center, calm as a stone in the river. You can see it in her posture. Something irreversible has taken root in her. She hasn't just returned, she's been rewritten. She wears her robe like a mantle of judgment, not adornment. And her silence now speaks louder than any god's decree. The gala demons have vanished, for now. But their absence feels like a held breath, a promise. You trail behind her as she walks back through the garden, the same one where she first packed her regalia. The trees seem smaller now, the birds too cautious to sing, and the statues of herself. They no longer mirror her. They look like echoes of someone who used to exist. She sits at the reflecting pool knees, drawn-up eyes staring into nothing. She doesn't blink. That's when Inanna arrives, Dumuzi's sister, a poet priestess, and as it turns out, someone with an almost masochistic sense of loyalty. She comes barefoot, robe torn at the edges, eyes swollen with weeping. You'd think she'd been crying for weeks. Inanna, she says, kneeling.
Let me speak. The goddess doesn't reply, not right away. Then he sat on my throne. He didn't know Inanna whispers. He thought you were gone forever. Inanna's face doesn't move. He smiled. And to be fair, that was probably the moment things really went downhill. Inanna bows low. Take me instead. The words fall like stones into the pool, rippling, sinking. You glance around waiting for the sky to crack open, but nothing happens. Inanna's eyes narrow. You would take his place, I would. Historians still debate this part. Was it love? Was it political performance? Some believe the story of Inanna emerged to mirror agricultural cycles, sowing, dying, returning. Others think she's an archetype, the loyal sibling who bears a family's curse. But none of that matters when you're looking at a woman kneeling before a goddess offering herself for the worst Airbnb in the cosmos. Inanna rises. She takes Inanna's hand.
And for the first time you see something soft flicker across her face. They may share it, she declares. Half the year above, half below, a divine compromise, seasonal custody of sorrow. From the soil beneath the temple, the underworld stirs again. The gala demons return, not angry this time, but dutiful. They take Inanna gently, respectfully, and she does not scream. She just closes her eyes and vanishes. A shift ripples across the city. In the fields, wheat stirs, goats bleat with renewed confidence. The air smells less like dust and more like rain. The cycle is set. 6 months Dumuzi will wander the underworld, silent, hunted, remembering. 6 months Inanna will take his place, walking among shades, writing poems on the walls of Kur with her fingernail. And Inanna, she watches it all. She walks back to her throne room, but she does not sit. She walks past it, barefoot, into the inner sanctum, past the murals, past prayers, etched into clay, into the solitude she carved for herself with blood, myth, and velvet night. You follow, hesitating just before the doorway. And you wonder, was this justice or was this transformation? The priests outside resume their chanting. The sun rises a little higher. Trade resumes, the river resumes its flow. But you've seen the hook. You've heard the scream. And no amount of sunshine can unknow what the underworld taught you. A fringe fact floats into your mind, unbidden. The name Dumuzi would echo through later myths, as Tammuz even winding its way into biblical lamentations. His fate cyclical, his sorrow echoed by generations, and Inanna, she will become Ishtar to some. To others, Astarte, a goddess of love, war, life and death, always dual, always unknowable, always dangerous. As Inanna lays her robe across a stool and finally breathes deep, her reflection in the obsidian pool does not match her movements. It lags, smiles, then disappears. You step back. Because some stories, they never really leave. You wake, or maybe you never slept beside the reflecting pool, its black water, still as prophecy. Inanna is gone. The garden is quiet again, too quiet, as if the flowers are afraid to bloom too loudly. You rise aching in a way you didn't know you could ache. Somewhere deep in your chest, A weight has settled. Not pain exactly, just knowledge. The kind that doesn't go away, the kind that grows roots. The priests bustle in the courtyard now, sweeping up petals, realigning statues. Everything must appear as it was, because if things look normal, maybe no one will ask why the goddess no longer speaks during the full moon, or why she stares too long into shadows. Humans are like that, eager to paint over divine silence with ceremonial noise. But you know better. You step back into the city where the air hums with heat and rumour. Word of Dumuzi's fall has already begun to spread. Some say he was taken by demons. Others whisper he simply vanished into the river. A few braver still say he deserved it. Historians still argue whether Dumuzi's myth was a warning to reckless kings or a seasonal allegory embedded in temple ritual. There's even a theory that Inanna's fury was borrowed from earlier matriarchal myths, preserved and then redressed by later priesthoods with better marketing. But on the street level, it plays out in more dramatic fashion. You pass a market vendor reenacting the story with 2 clay figurines and a bowl of grapes. He makes the Dumuzi doll scream in an exaggerated falsetto, then drops it into a sack of charcoal. The crowd laughs nervously. A child asks, but why'd the goddess kill her boyfriend? The vendor shrugs. She went down, came back up, and he was sitting on her stuff. What did you expect? You keep walking. At the city's edge lies the riverbank, where shepherds gather. You see women singing morning songs, their voices trembling like reeds. They do not call Dumuzi by name. They call him the young one, the vanished he who did not hide well enough. A strange ritual unfolds. One woman weeps, the next wails louder, the next louder still. The one who weeps most convincingly is chosen to wear a wreath of barley and lead the others into lament. Theatre maybe, but it feels ancient, bone-deep, necessary. You sit beneath a sycamore, its branches like fingers holding forgotten prayers. The tree seems older than the city itself. Carvings litter its bark, spiral stars' names written by hands, long turned to dust. A fringe tidbit crosses your mind. Some Sumerian myths list this very tree as sacred to Inanna. They believed it housed spirits, or perhaps secrets, or perhaps both. And then you see her, Inanna, not in the flesh, not exactly. A shimmer, a suggestion. Her shape dances in the air between 2 shafts of light. Her hair is loose, her eyes distant. You don't speak, you don't move. She does not smile, but she nods, just once, as if to say, you understand now. And you do. You understand that love is power, that power is sacrifice, that descent is not failure but process, that Inanna didn't descend just to die, she descended to shed, to be stripped of divinity, to be rebuilt. You understand that she didn't punish Dumuzi for lounging on a throne. She punished him for pretending nothing had changed. That's the real sin, isn't it? The refusal to change, even after death knocks, politely walks through your house and rearranges the furniture. And you're not the same either. You get up, legs shaky, but yours again. The sun is sliding into afternoon, casting gold across the walls of Uruk. Children chase each other through the streets, laughing like they've never heard of hooks or sisters or gala demons. And maybe they haven't yet, because that's how myths work. They don't stay dead. They loop. They linger. They wait for someone else to walk too far, ask too much, knock on the wrong door with too much pride and not enough lunch. You walk through the temple gates one last time. The statues look less smug now. The fountain sounds like laughter again. And the doves, they're back. One lands on your shoulder, coos, once then leaves a blessing, or something stickier on your tunic before flying off. Divinity is never tidy. As the sun sets behind Uruk, you close your eyes. You see her again descending, stripped, hung, and then rising, not reborn, rewritten. The moon has risen again over Uruk, casting its pale glow across mud-brick rooftops and shimmering palm leaves. You walk slowly through the streets, barefoot now, though you don't remember removing your sandals. It feels right somehow. The earth beneath you is warm, pulsing faintly with the memory of stories. Inanna is gone from the temple, physically at least, but her presence clings to the air like a scent that's both unfamiliar and ancestral. The people whisper her name with a kind of reverence you didn't hear before, not awe, not fear, something in between. Respect, maybe, or shared trauma. You pass an old man painting symbols on a tablet, his fingers trembling. He glances up, eyes clouded with age. "You look like someone who's seen her," he mutters. You nod. He doesn't ask what you saw. Wise choice. Instead, he returns to his carving. You catch a glimpse. It's the crescent moon, the hook, the 7 gates. And her eyes, always her eyes. He whispers almost to himself, "Even gods change when they descend. You keep walking." Uruk smells different at night, not like incense and sweat, but wet clay, flowering trees, and something older, something that belongs to the deep. The city feels like it's holding its breath between eras. You come to a small shrine tucked into the side of a building. It wasn't there before. Candles burn low inside 7 of them. A woman kneels before the flame, humming softly. Her child rests in her lap, eyes wide listening. "And the goddess walked through the land of dust," she says, "and she left her crown behind." The child blinks. Did she get it back? The mother smiles, lips thin. She got something better. The child frowns. What's better than a crown? You don't hear the answer, but maybe that's the point. In the background, a soft melody picks up. A harp, a reed flute, maybe both. The music doesn't come from a musician. It comes from the stones, the breeze, the echo of a story, retold so many times it's become part of the architecture. And then you find yourself outside a place you recognize, though you've never been here before, the House of Lamentation. It's where priestesses sing for those who have entered the underworld, where they burn oils and write the names of the dead in dust. Tonight it's quiet. Only one voice rises, a low, sorrowful chant. You listen from the shadows. The words are old, their rhythm older still. You who faced the gates of Ganzia. You who walked naked through the stone. You who were hung and still rose. Bless us with your shadow. Not exactly bedtime poetry, but strangely beautiful. Inside, the singer pauses, and you catch sight of her face. Inanna, alive, or maybe alive adjacent. She sits beneath a woven canopy, her hair braided with thorns and silver thread. Her eyes are rimmed with sleep she's not permitted to keep. Her voice carries the weight of someone who's seen both ends of eternity and decided to stay somewhere in the middle. She finishes the chant, and then, without looking up, says, "You're wondering why I came back." You blink. You didn't say anything. She gestures to a bowl of cool water. "Sit." You do. She dips her fingers in and draws a spiral on the floor. The underworld doesn't keep everything.
Only what forgets to return. You tilt your head. So? Dumuzi forgot. She chuckles bitterly. Dumuzi refused to descend, refused to acknowledge what had changed. She shrugs, so the Gala reminded him. You want to ask if she hates her brother for it, or pities him. But she's already moved on. We share the burden now, she says. 6 months down, 6 months up. I leave pieces of myself behind each time. It's the only way the cycle works, and that's when it hits you. The seasons, the descent, the ascent, the 6 months of barrenness, of winter, of silence, and then the return, spring, fertility, renewal. It's all a rhythm. Historians still debate whether this myth directly inspired later seasonal death-rebirth cycles like Persephone's descent to Hades, but the parallels are too vivid to ignore. You ask, was it worth it? Inanna doesn't answer right away. She places her hand on your chest, right over your heart.
You'll know, she says, when the time comes for your descent. Wait, what? But she's already closing her eyes again. The shrine dims. The spiral on the floor fades. The candles go out one by one. And outside, Uruk sleeps. You step back into the street, the moon now high and silver, casting long shadows shaped like gates. You feel different. Like something was taken, and something was given, and neither can be named. You wander the city for hours or maybe minutes, it's hard to say. Time has softened, grown squishy around the edges, like a date fruit left too long in the sun. Uruk at night has become quieter, not because it sleeps, but because it listens. Every so often you hear a whisper that doesn't belong to the wind. Inanna descended. She rose again. Someone must always take her place. You stop in front of a wall covered in crude chalk drawings, figures drawn with wide eyes and thin limbs. One sketch shows a woman with a crown dropping it into a pit. Another shows her standing again, taller than before. The artist, probably a child or a prophet or both. The myth has already begun to mutate, as all good myths do. You hear sandals scuffing stone behind you. It's a group of priestesses, young, serious, carrying bowls of crushed herbs and jugs of scented oil. They're heading toward the temple of Erishkigal. Yes, you heard that right. A new shrine to the Queen of the Dead. Apparently someone decided she deserved more than screams and curses. You follow at a distance, curiosity outweighing self-preservation. The temple is small, barely a chamber, but it's clean lit with dark lanterns that burn violet instead of gold. Inside, a single obsidian altar gleams. No statues, no chants, just a basin of cool water and an inscription that reads, "She mourned. She judged, she remained." It's oddly comforting. You kneel for a moment, unsure why. Something shifts in the shadows, and then she's there. Girl, not in flesh.
Not in form, but in presence, heavy, raw, unfiltered. You don't see her, not really. You feel her, the gravity of grief, the shape of power born from pain. You expect to be afraid, you're not. She does not speak. But if she did, it would probably sound like this. You think the underworld is punishment. No, it's where we keep the truth, the part you bury, the part that buries you. I just hold the door. The room sways. You grab the altar to steady yourself. And you remember something strange, something rarely mentioned in temple hymns. Erishkigal once had a husband. Maybe. Some texts name him Gugalanna, the bull of heaven. Others claim he died before Inanna descended. Some argue he was sent by the gods to punish Gilgamesh, then torn apart, then forgotten. Or maybe he never existed at all. Myths are funny that way, slippery, like fish soaked in olive oil. Try to pin one down and it transforms into poetry or scandal or bureaucratic metaphor.
The priestesses begin their ritual. They hum, they burn the herbs, they pour wine into the basin. And for a moment, Erishkigal's presence softens. Not happy, but acknowledged, heard. You step outside before the ritual ends. The night air is cooler now. The stars feel closer, more conspiratorial. You walk past the sleeping market, past shuttered bakeries and stacked amphorae until you reach a lonely outcropping of stone overlooking the river. There's a fisherman sitting there. You think he's asleep. Then he speaks. Do you know what they say in the far cities? You blink. No. He grins without turning. They say Inanna went to die so she could learn what makes her stay alive. You sit beside him. Did she succeed? He shrugs. She came back, didn't she? You both stare at the water for a while. It glows faintly with moonlight rippling with secrets. Then he adds, thing is, everyone loves the rising part. The return, the drama, the glowing skin and triumphant music.
You glance at him. He's older than you thought. Maybe older than the city. But the falling, he says, the stripping away. No one sings for that. No one wants to. A breeze stirs. He tosses something into the river, a coin or a seed or a tooth. And yet he says that's where the magic is. You don't reply because you're thinking about those 7 gates, about each thing Inanna surrendered, about how none of it came back the same. You're thinking about the way she looked when she emerged reassembled, but never truly whole. And maybe that's the point. Because if wholeness is never questioned, then it's just a costume. A fringe historical tidbit drifts up from the depths of your mind. Some interpretations suggest Inanna's descent isn't just a story about death, but a ritual roadmap for transformation, a kind of divine therapy session, 3,000 years ahead of its time. Not bad, Sumerians, not bad. You rise from the riverbank as dawn begins to break.
Pale pink fingers brushing the sky. A new day. But you carry night inside you now. You walk back toward the city, where bells will soon ring and markets will open, and children will ask again, why did she go? And maybe someday you'll answer. You wake not in a bed, not on soft earth, but in a doorway between 2 realities, or maybe just on someone's rooftop tucked under a worn wool blanket someone left out of kindness. Either way, your back aches, your hair smells faintly of temple incense and burnt figs, and your dreams were full of gates, 7 of them always closing behind you. Uruk is alive this morning, but quieter, like it's waiting for instructions from someone higher up in the celestial food chain. People bustle, sure there are lentils to trade goats, to milk mildly cursed scrolls to haggle over, but there's a wait, a slowness, as if everyone knows something changed, even if no one quite remembers what. You climb down the ladder from the rooftop and head toward the temple again. Not the temple of Inanna, though that's where you'll end up, but the path there takes you through the city's oldest district. The streets here are narrow, coiled like intestines. Walls lean too close as if whispering secrets to each other. And everyone walks a little faster in this part of town. You pause at a corner to let a funeral procession pass, slow, rhythmic and almost theatrical. The mourners wear bird masks and carry clay figurines. Someone plays a flute badly but with great emotion. You wonder if the deceased knew they'd be remembered this dramatically. The leader of the procession, a woman with grey paint on her face, turns as she passes you. Inanna watches, she says, voice hoarse. You nod. Because of course she does. You reach the temple grounds just as the sun hits the lapis inlays on the pillars, sending light scattering in a kaleidoscope of holy glitter. The scent of warm bread, rose oil and camel dung wafts through the air, divine meets domestic. Inside, the priestesses are gathered in a circle around something. You slip through a side arch, blending with the shadows until you're close enough to see. They're redressing the ascent tablet, a tall clay stele carved with the details of Inanna's return. You notice something's changed. A new line has been added. She rose not to rule but to remember. You feel that in your spine. One of the priestesses turns. It's Ninshubur. She looks older than you remember. Or maybe just tired. You again, she says, not unkindly. You offer a weak smile. She pats the stele. They keep asking for more lines. Everyone wants to add their version. Soon the thing will be taller than the ziggurat. You glance up at the towering stone. Is that bad? She shrugs. Only if they stop listening and start decorating. Classic Ninshuba, never one for fluff.
A younger girl, no more than 12, runs over tugging at Ninshubur's sleeve. Can I read the line about the hooks again? Ninshubur chuckles. Just the line. No screaming this time. The girl straightens dramatically and begins. And they hung her body on the wall like meat. You step outside before she finishes. You've heard it before. You walk to the back of the temple where pilgrims leave offerings, barley cakes, bits of gold, carved tokens shaped like moons or lions. You see something new among the gifts today. A lock of hair tied with reed. A symbol of mourning or surrender. People are starting to offer parts of themselves, not just things. It's catching on. A historian's voice drifts through your mind, one of those snarky ones who like to argue about everything. Some scholars believe Inanna's descent reflects an early psychological understanding of ego death, the deliberate surrender of identity in order to find a truer self. Yeah, you believe that now too.
You're about to leave when someone stops you. A woman, middle-aged, wrinkled like a well-folded map. She wears no jewelry, no priestly robes, just a plain robe and tired eyes. I heard you went with her, she says. You freeze. She doesn't wait for an answer. Tell me, was she afraid you open your mouth and stop? Because you're not sure afraid is the right word. Stripped. Yes. Humbled. Undeniably. But afraid no, she went knowing she might not return, you say. But she went anyway. The woman nods. That's how I lost my son. He went to fight in the mountains. Told me not to wait. You both stand in silence for a moment. Then she places something in your hand, a tiny sculpture of a dove, worn smooth by time or grief or both. Leave it for her, she says. Wherever she is, you do. You place it beside a cracked bowl of wine and a garland of crushed petals. You whisper, for the ones who went down and never came back the same. Then you step away. And as you do, you hear the faintest rustle in the air, not wind, not leaves. A voice, soft, amused. Neither did you. The voice still echoes in your mind, soft, amused, eerily certain. Neither did you. And it's true, isn't it? You feel it in your shoulders, in the hollows of your chest, in the way you now instinctively count gates when walking through doorways. You've changed, you've descended. And while you didn't hang from a hook or weep in the lap of Erishkigal, you did walk the path. You witnessed the unraveling of a goddess. You can't be who you were before. The city feels different now, not just to you, but in general. There's a new energy in Uruk, a kind of cracked reverence. People are beginning to speak Inanna's name with a different tone, not as a warrior, not as a lover, not even as a queen, but as something more intimate, as someone who knows loss. You pass a weaver in the market threading gold into a funeral shawl. Her assistant hums a tune that sounds suspiciously like the Descent hymn. You pass a young boy building a model of the 7 gates with sticks and clay. He's made little Inannas to walk through them, each one smaller than the last. You turn a corner and nearly collide with a man in a hurry. He's out of breath, clutching a tablet. He doesn't even apologize, just mumbles, "Temple update." She's changed the ending again. Apparently the myths are already being rewritten. Back in the temple district, you hear someone shouting, a priest, red-faced, robe flapping. He's addressing a crowd of about 20, mostly farmers and traders, and he's furious. "She chose death," he yells, and we're expected to worship that the crowd is silent. Then a woman steps forward, hands calloused, voice firm. "She chose to face death," she says. "That's different." Murmurs of agreement ripple through the crowd. The priest sputters, but he's already lost them. You duck away before he sees you.
Wandering again, that's what you do now. You find yourself drawn to a part of the city most people avoid, the riverbank, where the Gala first rose from the earth. It's quiet here, too quiet. A few broken reeds lean over the water, and something about the place feels still open, like a door not quite shut. You kneel, brush your fingers through the silt. The river doesn't speak, but you get the feeling it remembers. And then a sound. Footsteps. You look up to see a man standing a few yards away. He's young maybe, or ageless, eyes too calm, shoulders broad but relaxed, dressed plainly, just linen, no symbols. He watches you. You know before he speaks. Dumuzi, you say. He smiles sadly, not alive, not dead, something in between. A spirit echo, a seasonal ghost. Historians still argue about whether he was ever meant to return. You saw her, he says. You nod. He steps closer, kneels beside you. I thought she'd spare me, he says, not bitter, just resigned. I thought love was enough. You want to say something, but what do you tell a man who got dragged screaming into the afterlife because he wore the wrong expression? She did love you, you offer. He gives a slow nod. She did, and she knew I couldn't follow. That's why she asked. You blink. Wait, she asked. He chuckles low and hollow. Of course, she always gives a choice. You just don't always realize that's what's happening. You think back. Inanna's eyes, the way she looked at him. It wasn't vengeance. It was disappointment. She needed someone to understand what she'd seen, he continues. I couldn't. So she chose again. You both sit in silence. Then he says, tell her I'm trying. Trying what to change. The breeze shifts. You glance away for a moment and he's gone. Just like that. You head back into the city. Everywhere now, people are mimicking the myth. The 7 gates are being recreated for festival games.
Children tie fabric strips to their arms, shedding one at a time as they walk solemnly toward a pretend underworld made from baskets and reeds. It's adorable. It's a little creepy. It's exactly what humans do. Turn death into ritual, turn ritual into something just manageable enough to bear. You stop outside a potter's store. A fresh batch of urns rests on display. Each is etched with unfamiliar designs, half rings, broken spears, women holding serpents. You ask what they mean. The potter shrugs. Don't know, they came to me in a dream. You nod. Of course they did. In the distance, you hear temple bells low and slow like yawns made of bronze. A new ritual is beginning. You follow the sound, not because you need to, but because you want to. Inside the temple, they've changed the layout. No more golden dais, no more peacock feathers everywhere. Instead, a circle of woven mats. Simple, intimate. Everyone sits barefoot. They're not praying, they're telling stories.
One by one, each person shares a time they fell, a time they broke, a time they descended. No judgment, no performance, just truth. And when it's your turn, you speak. Not of the gates, not of the hook. You say, I followed her down. And when I came back, I wasn't smaller, I was stranger. They nod, they understand, because that's what descent does. It doesn't erase, it expands. The next morning, the city wakes before the sun. You hear it in the shuffle of sandals against stone, the hiss of early fires catching straw, the murmur of market stalls preparing for something more than trade. You sit up from where you slept on a temple veranda this time, lulled to rest by the final chorus of a priestess singing about gates, and blink the sleep from your eyes. Something's different again. Not in the sky, which is still bruised purple with dawn, not in the air, which still smells like honey cakes and livestock. It's in the people. They're humming. All of them.
Different tunes, fragments, echoes of the descent hymn, or maybe just their own morning music. But it's everywhere light, breathy humming, not joyful, not sorrowful, something else, a shared remembering. You follow the sound weaving through clay-lined alleys and past city walls until you reach the river. There's a crowd there, silent now waiting. And there at the water's edge is someone who does not belong. Two someones, actually. They stand shoulder to shoulder, yet look as though they've never met. They are not priestesses, not nobility, not street performers. They wear grey robes, both stained with what looks like powdered ash and mica. They are shimmering ever so slightly. You hear someone whisper behind you the Kugara and the Galatur. You weren't expecting them, but here they are. The dirt-born, genderless beings of Enki's strange compassion. The ones who mirrored the queen of the dead's sorrow until she gave them the one thing no one had ever asked for: mercy. They don't speak, they don't move, they simply exist. And that is more than enough to draw an entire city to silence. Children cling to their mothers. An old man removes his sandals without knowing why. A priest with too many rings on his fingers kneels forehead to the dust. Then slowly, Kugara steps forward. He holds a clay vessel no larger than a melon. Its surface is unmarked, its weight unbearable. He raises it toward the river and sets it gently into the current. The Galatur watches. You swear their eyes flash silver for a moment. The vessel floats. It doesn't spin, doesn't sink, doesn't drift. It simply moves forward, purposeful, as if following a path you can't see. What's in it? Someone murmurs. No answer comes, but you think you know a piece of Inanna, or Erishkigal, or maybe something even older. Maybe grief contained and sent away, not to be forgotten, but to be honoured, to be kept in motion. A fringe tidbit rolls into your mind in some recovered temple texts. There are mentions of offerings sent downriver to the mouth of the great darkness. Scholars argue whether this was ritual metaphor or a literal practice. Knowing what you've seen, it was probably both. The vessel drifts out of sight. Crowd breathes again. Then the Galatur begins to sing. No words, just tone. Low, quivering, ancient. It's the sound of wind through cracked doorways, of water dripping in the dark of memory, too large for language. The Kugara joins, harmonizing, if that's what you can call it. It's not music, not really. It's a reverberation, a feeling pressed into the air, and you feel it in you, every gate, every surrender, every choice. You weep before you realize you've started, not loud, just a quiet spill of salt. And you are not alone. Even the children are still.
Not because they understand, but because something inside them does. When the song ends, the figures vanish. No flourish, no smoke, just gone. The crowd disperses slowly, reverently. No one speaks above a whisper. You hear things like, "She sent them. She's watching again." They are her reminders. You stay behind at the river watching the current. The priestess who sang you to sleep last night joins you. She sits beside you chewing a date, offers one to you. "They'll be back," she says. "How do you know?" She gestures vaguely. "The river's not finished with us." You smile. "That's uncomfortably vague." She smirks. "I'm a priestess." Ambiguity is part of the job. You both chew in silence. Then she says more gently, "You've been called, haven't you?" You pause. "By who?" She shrugs. "You'll know when it's time to answer." Typical priestess behavior. Still, she's not wrong. That night you dream of Enki, the god of waters and wisdom and weird solutions.
He's lounging in an impossible pool that contains both stars and minnows. Good job not interfering, he tells you, flicking water at a nearby bird that's definitely also a fish. You frown. "What do you mean?" "You walked through the myth," he says, yawning. "Most people try to fix it, to make it prettier, cleaner, less dead. Shouldn't I have?" He shakes his head. "Death doesn't need fixing, it needs witnessing." You nod, or maybe swim. The dream doesn't obey physics. Before he disappears, he tosses you a stone. When you wake, it's in your hand, smooth, black, warm. You smile. You've been given something, again. And like all gifts from gods, it comes with no instructions. You carry the stone for days, tucked in your palm, hidden in your robe, pressed against your chest when no one is looking. It doesn't do anything miraculous, no glowing, no vibrating, no sudden visions of cosmic spreadsheets. It's just a stone. But it's warm. Even when you leave it on a cold stone slab overnight, it greets you in the morning like a sunbeam curled in silence. You stop trying to interpret it. It simply is, like breath, or grief, or gods. You spend the next few days drifting through Uruk like a ghost that forgot to clock out. People are changing. You pass a child drawing gates in the dirt, 7 of them just like in the stories. His sister stomps across them in practiced ritual, removing a bangle from each wrist at every imaginary gate. When she reaches the final circle, she throws her arms up and yells, "Now I'm dead!" You wait for someone to scold her. No one does. In fact, the baker, watching from his stall, claps. Good descent, he calls. Very dramatic. They're teaching it now. The myth, the movement, the descent, and not just in temples. You hear it in marketplace arguments. "Don't talk to me like that. I've been through 5 gates today already." You hear it in songs, in lullabies, in flirtation. I'd walk through Kur if it meant seeing your face at the other end. You even hear it whispered in therapy sessions conducted on temple porches. Let go at the 6th gate. It's always heavier than you think. Historians still argue whether the Inanna myth was used as part of sacred drama festivals in early Sumerian life, but at this point, in Uruk, it's daily routine. A flexible living ritual that no longer belongs to the high priests, it belongs to everyone. And that's what makes it powerful. You're halfway to the temple district when a runner finds you, small, fast, possibly powered by nervous energy and date syrup. "High priestess wants you," he pants. "Now!" You blink. "Which high priestess?" He shrugs. "The one who can look through walls." "Ah." "So, Inanna's temple, you arrive to find a crowd outside. not a rowdy one, a waiting one. Inside, Ninshubur is pacing. "Inanna's coming," she says. Your stomach knots. Here? No, she snaps, not to the temple. To this moment, to this part of the story, you just stare at her. She does this, Ninshubur continues, rubbing her temples. She cycles back, shows up in new forms, new dreams. She doesn't knock, does she? Need something? Ninshubur laughs dryly. Do gods ever need? No, she offers. That's worse. And that's when the walls shimmer. You feel it before you see her, the pressure in the air, the tightness in your lungs, the sudden urge to kneel, sprint, or weep. Then there she is, not glowing, not winged, no lions, no crown, just a woman, alone, walking barefoot across the temple floor. Her robe is the colour of dusk. Her eyes are galaxies mid-forgetting themselves. Her skin carries the texture of story, etched and smooth all at once. She stops in front of you, doesn't speak, just watches. And you realize she's not looking at you. She's looking through you, into the underworld that still clings to your ribs, into the gates you're still carrying, into the tiny part of your soul still hanging from a hook. You think, say something. You manage, why did you go? She smiles, just barely. And finally she answers. To become the story, she says, you swallow. And now I am the story. Behind her the temple shadows twist. The scent of cedar and blood and crushed lilies rises. You hear the faint clatter of bangles dropping gate after gate, echoing through time. Then she turns, and she walks away, through a doorway that wasn't there before, a doorway that shimmers like memory. And just like that she's gone. Ninshubur breathes again. You hadn't noticed she was holding her breath. She's back, she says almost to herself. You sit on the cool temple floor. Place the stone from Enki on the ground before you. It hums, but only once. You stay there all night, not because you're told to, because you want to. You want to feel what it means to be at the center of a myth that walks and breathes and descends again and again. When dawn breaks, you find a small crowd has joined you. Not priests, not acolytes, just people. Sitting, waiting, listening. Because sometimes that's all the gods ever wanted from us. The sun rises slowly over Uruk, brushing the city's edge with sleepy gold. It spreads across rooftops like a yawn, curling into alleyways, spilling over the ziggurat steps, and finally touching the temple courtyard, where you're still seated, legs crossed, stone in hand, breath held in that liminal space between waking and something older. Around you, the crowd stirs, people stretch, some rub their eyes. One man carefully rearranges the 7 lentil cakes he brought as an offering into a gate-shaped pattern. Someone's goat is chewing on a papyrus scroll, and no one seems interested in stopping it. This is morning now. Not the return to normal, but the beginning of a new normal. You look down at the stone in your hand. It's changed, ever so slightly. It's darker, smoother, like it's been touched by more than just time by story, maybe, or meaning, or heat drawn from within. You rise. So does the woman beside you, and the man beside her. No one says it out loud, but you all know it's time to walk. Together you follow a path that seems to make itself beneath your feet, through the city gates, across the dry canal bed, into the outer fields. The grain has just begun to sprout again, thin, bright green blades cutting through the dust like small miracles. You pause at the edge of the field, everyone fanning out in a half circle. There in the center, a post stands, not a pillar, not a monument, just a simple wooden stake carved with 7 notches. The first wind of the morning rolls through, and then it happens. A girl, barely old enough to braid her own hair, steps forward from the crowd. She wears a crown made of reeds and weeds and whatever her little brother could grab on the way here. She removes it, drops it. The crowd murmurs. Then she pulls off a bracelet, a sandal, a ribbon. Each item falls with quiet ceremony, matching the rhythm of her soft footsteps as she walks toward the post. 1 gate, 2, 3. By the 7th step she stands barefoot, hair-loose arms open to the sky. She doesn't speak, doesn't need to. The entire crowd inhales as one. Then she steps back. And it's done. A mock ritual, sure. A child's version of myth. But you feel it deep in your chest all the same, that low, familiar pull of transformation, of surrender, of choosing to walk towards something that might unmake you. You sit in the dirt and breathe it in. Beside you, a farmer leans close. We used to be afraid of this story, he says. Now it's ours. You nod, not because it's comforting, but because it's true. A few feet away, 2 older women are teaching a new chant. She who goes down comes back changed. She who rises leaves her name behind. They repeat it until the syllables smooth into something between prayer and lullaby. You find yourself whispering along by the 3rd time through. A fringe fact surfaces from the back of your mind. In some later cultures, Inanna's story was folded into other goddesses, Ishtar, Astarte, even Aphrodite, in her weeping aspects. It travelled like dust on wind, settling into stories that seemed unrelated but carried her voice in their marrow. And now she's here. In the hands of children, in the soil, in your breath. Someone begins lighting incense. Not the expensive kind, just bundles of dried herbs and date pits smouldering slowly. The air fills with scent, earthy, sweet, a little bitter. Like memory. You turn your face upward. The sky has shifted. It's not just light now, it's alive. Clouds pulse in slow rhythms. Birds wheel above the field, circling in what looks suspiciously like the shape of 7 gates. Coincidence, maybe. But also maybe not. You look back toward the wooden post. The girl's belongings remain where she left them. And one more thing has joined them. Your stone, you don't remember placing it there, but there it sits, nestled between the reed crown and a child-sized sandal. Someone hums the gate chant again. The crowd joins quietly, imperfectly. And you hum too, because you've stopped needing to understand everything. The gods don't need you to explain. They need you to witness, to walk, to descend. And maybe when the time is right, to rise. Later that evening, the city glows with a different kind of light. Not just torches or hearth fires, but reflected memory, the kind of golden warmth that lingers in doorways and clings to the rims of amphorae. The kind that tastes like honey and dust and the laughter of people who've survived something quietly monumental. You walk the streets slowly now. Not because you're tired, though you are, but because each step feels like a conversation with the ground. With the story beneath it, people nod to you, not with recognition exactly, more like shared complicity, as if they too have seen the gates in dreams and woken up slightly different. No one talks about it directly, but everyone knows. At the temple gate you pause. You're not here for ceremony. You're not here to leave offerings or interpret dreams. You're here for the archives. Yes, even myths need paperwork. You slip past the dozing novice at the door, who mumbles something about moon phases and snores himself back into silence. Inside, The air smells of burnt ink and aged papyrus. Clay tablets line the walls, each inscribed with a story, a name, a plea. You've never been to this part of the temple before. It's quieter than the others. Sacred, but not polished. The walls are unpainted, the lamps are small. This isn't the part they show to dignitaries. This is the shadowed spine of Inanna's myth. And here you find something unexpected. A scribe. Young, barefoot, ink-stained. She doesn't look up from her tablet as she speaks. You're looking for the uncopied version. You blink. What? She gestures without glancing. Third shelf, back corner, smells like mold and divine confusion. You find it exactly where she says. The clay tablet is old, older than anything you've held. It hums with weight, not physical, but narrative. Its edges are chipped, its symbols carved in a dialect that hasn't been spoken in centuries, but you understand it anyway. It reads, "She did not descend to die. She descended to remind the dark what light once felt like." You run your fingers across the words. The clay is cool, but your fingertips tingle. The scribe finally looks at you. Most people only want the popular version, she says. The hooks, the crying, the demons. You nod. It's a good story. She shrugs. It's a true story, but not the only one. Are there more? She smiles. Of course, descent doesn't end with return. You sit down across from her. The floor is hard but comforting. You ask, do you think she knew what she was doing? From the start, the scribe thinks for a long moment. Then I think she didn't care. Why not? Because sometimes a goddess has to stop performing divinity and just walk through the dirt. You sit with that. She returns to her tablet. Carefully carves a single line. The hook was not punishment. It was punctuation. You don't speak again. Eventually you leave the archive, stepping back into the twilight. Uruk is glowing again, but softer now, like the light has learned to be gentle. Outside the temple, someone has built a small shrine, not to Inanna, but to the journey itself. It's made of broken pottery and reed string. In the center sits a single pebble, plain and unremarkable. People stop to touch it, not to worship, to remember. You sit nearby and listen to stories, to jokes, to the occasional goat-related complaint. And then someone asks a question loud enough for all to hear. Why would a goddess choose to die? You expect the silence to follow. But instead a woman answers, because she loved us enough to fall apart first. Then another chimes in, because someone had to show us how to survive the descent. And another, because maybe gods get tired of being perfect too. You close your eyes, let the warmth of the words drift over you like a blanket of night. You remember the 7 gates, the surrender, the silence, the scream, the slow, painful return, and now the part no one ever writes down. What happens after? What happens when the goddess returns and the world expects her to smile, to wear the crown like it never chafed, to sit on the throne as though her bones don't ache from where they hung her? You remember Inanna's face, and you know she returned not to rule, but to witness us in our falling, in our silence, in our strange, beautiful attempts to rise. And you're starting to see the descent in everything now, in grief, in love, in change, in the quiet acts of walking through your own shadows and coming back not shiny but real. That's what she gave us, not perfection, but pattern, and now it's ours. The morning after your visit to the archive, you awaken to the sound of water trickling. You're not in your sleeping place anymore. You're somewhere else entirely, still Uruk, yes, but quieter, more ancient. The walls walls are made of pressed earth and shadow. The doorways are curved like question marks, and the air smells unmistakably of beginnings. You realize where you are only when your foot touches the floor, the house of first rituals. Few know of it. Fewer are allowed inside. It's where stories were first spoken aloud, where clay first held breath, where silence became something sacred rather than something shameful. You're not alone here. She is here too, but not Inanna. Not exactly. She has no body, no face, but her presence bends the air like heat on a summer road. It gathers in the corners in the shimmer of morning dust. It clings to your shoulders like an old shawl someone once loved deeply. You sit, because what else do you do when a goddess decides your dreams are now pilgrimage? You wait. And that's when the wind arrives, not a breeze, not a gust, a wind. It barrels down the corridor like memory on fire. It knocks over bowls. It scrapes against the walls like something angry or relieved. And inside it you hear her voice. Not outside your ears, inside your bones. They thought I went to die, but I went to see what cannot be known, to lose what must be shed, to ask the question no god dares to ask, what am I without my power? The wind hushes. You don't respond, you can't. Because you know the answer now, the same one you've carried since the hook. She was never without power. She was learning how to use the kind that can't be polished or crowned or etched into a temple wall. The kind that rises from absence, from emptiness, from choice. A scholar once theorized that Inanna's myth marked a shift in the religious consciousness of ancient Mesopotamia from cyclical agricultural gods to more individualized human-like deities capable of introspection. That descent wasn't about reasons, it was about selfhood. You never understood what that meant until now, because Inanna's journey wasn't just to the underworld, it was to herself. And she didn't find a throne, she found Erishkigal, her mirror, her opposite, her other self. You rise slowly and walk the corridor, guided only by intuition. Your hand drifts across the walls, fingers brushing ancient carvings, some of them unfinished. There are no names, only symbols. One you recognize, a spiral broken at the center. Another, a figure with wings, folded inward, not outward. Another, a hand open. And beside it, a hand missing. You emerge into a courtyard open to the sky. Vines hang from crumbling arches. In the center is a pool, not for bathing, not for ritual, just stillness. Its surface is undisturbed, perfect, blank. You look into it and see yourself, but not just as you are now. You see yourself at each gate, stripped, unsure, laughing too loudly to mask the fear. You see yourself standing beside the hook. You see yourself clutching the stone. You see yourself choosing to return. And there beside your reflection, another face flickers in the water. Familiar. Terrifying. Beautiful. Inanna. She doesn't speak. She simply nods and fades. The wind rises again gently this time, just enough to disturb the pool's surface. When it clears, you're alone again. Except you're not. You carry too much now to ever truly be alone. You carry her story. You carry the gates. You carry the moment you learned that descent is not punishment, it's invitation to change, to relinquish, to shatter. And then if you're lucky, if you're willing to rebuild, you leave the house of first rituals with no fanfare, no procession, no one waits at the gates, no bells ring. But the air is different now. The people you pass see you, not as someone who knows the myth, but as someone who has lived it. You reach the marketplace where a woman sells miniature statues of Inanna, each one slightly different. In one, she is armored. In another, she weeps. In the smallest one, she smiles while holding an empty bowl. You buy that one, not because you need a souvenir, but because you understand that sometimes what you offer the world is simply space. And an empty bowl is the bravest offering of all. Night falls slowly over Uruk, as if reluctant to bring darkness again to a city that now knows too much about it. The sky turns from copper to wine to ink, and with it the city quiets not the silence of fear, but the hush of ritual, of waiting, of remembering. You walk the streets with no destination, only movement. Your feet know the way, even if your mind doesn't. You carry the small statue of Inanna in your pouch, the one where she holds an empty bowl and smiles like she knows a secret and isn't quite ready to share it yet. The streets are strewn with flower petals tonight, wilted marigolds and dried hyacinth left over from a procession you must have missed. The smell is a little sour, a little sweet, like grief left in the sun, and then you hear it, drumming, soft, rhythmic, in time with breath, with heartbeat, with something older. You follow it. It leads you to a rooftop, one of the lower ones near the temple district, where dancers rehearse and singers gather for the kind of worship that doesn't require scripts. They are already in motion. A ring of women and men and children hands, joined feet bare, moving in slow, spiraled steps. One breaks from the circle, dropping to the ground. They remove a necklace, then rejoin. Another slips off a scarf. Another releases a long-held note. You realize with a start what they're doing. They are dancing the descent, not acting it, living it. They're moving through each gate in rhythm, removing a layer with each turn, each gesture. There is no performance, no applause, just the whisper of skin and cloth and drum and breath. You sit quietly near the chimney, unnoticed, or more likely accepted. The stars above are brighter than they've been in weeks. The moon is a sliver, the kind of moon that watches, not illuminates. And in the center of the rooftop, as the final dancer kneels, hands raised, empty, head bowed, there is no sound. The drumming stops, and in that stillness, something arrives. You feel it more than you see it. Not a form, not a face, just her, Inanna. Or perhaps only the part of her that remains here, echoing, responding, dwelling not in heaven but in humans. She arrives in the quiet, in the surrender, in the moment when the dancers rise again, not triumphant, not theatrical, but steady, changed. As they move back into the circle, no one rushes to reclaim their dropped tokens. They leave the scarves, the jewelry, the voices behind, because the descent isn't about what you lost. It's about what you let go of willingly. A man beside you speaks without turning. This is the third night they've danced it. You glance at him. He wears priest's robes, but they're unlaced, at the neck, relaxed, human. He adds, "I used to think it was a tragedy." The descent, you say nothing. You've learned when to listen, but now he says, "I think it's a map." You nod. He holds something out to you. A small tablet no bigger than your palm. Wet clay, fresh. "You'll want to write yours soon," he says. "My what your version?" You blink. He just smiles. Everyone carries it differently. And then he leaves. You stare at the blank tablet. Its surface is soft, imprintable, a little stubborn like all good stories. You don't write anything, not yet. Instead, you watch the dancers. They've begun a new cycle, this one, in reverse, reclaiming what was left, but slower, more careful. The drum begins again, and this time you do feel it in your chest. A fringe insight drifts through your mind. In some interpretations, Inanna's descent wasn't just about or death or love. It was a confrontation with identity itself, a peeling back of constructed self until nothing remained but the essential, the undefended self, and then only then was she ready to return.
You sit with that. Let it stretch out inside you. Let it take shape. And when the rooftop empties, when the drums are packed away, when the dancers descend the ladder, one by one, you remain. The tablet still rests in your lap, still blank. You press your thumb into the center. A small mark, nothing else. You smile, because sometimes descent doesn't end in words. It ends in witnessing, and in the knowing that you too have passed through something, and came back not as someone new, but as someone true. The next day, Uruk is awash in colour, not the colours of pomp and royal decree. No peacock-feathered banners or pearl-inlaid standards. These are quieter hues, earthy, hand-woven, 1,000 shades of ochre and ash, stitched into garments painted onto doors, smeared along the edges of bread loaves as blessings. You walk among it all, the clay tablet from the rooftop tucked inside your robe. The thumbprint in the centre has hardened now. Still no words.
But the weight of it against your ribs is reassuring, like a heartbeat you can hold. A procession is forming along the main road, not a funeral, though it moves like one, not a wedding, though there's laughter scattered like petals. It's something else. People carry 7 items each. You spot a man with 7 river stones painted with symbols, a woman with 7 pieces of burnt fabric, a child with 7 cracked date seeds tied onto a string. You ask the woman beside you what this is. She smiles gently. A walk of memory. You raise an eyebrow. She shrugs. To honor the parts of ourselves we gave up. Willingly. Ah, you watch in silence as they walk. There's no music, no call to order, no priests shouting holy verses, just the sound of footsteps and the soft clink of offerings in baskets. At the city centre, they pause. Each person places one of their 7 items into a large clay jar shaped like an open mouth. You look closer.
It's a replica of the gate to Ganzir, the mythical entrance to the underworld. Someone even etched the same knotwork design around the rim. The effect is unsettling, sacred. Each item dropped is followed by a whisper. Not a chant, not a declaration, just a few quiet words given to the gate. You inch closer, trying to hear one. You catch fragments when I stop pretending to be strong. The day he didn't come back, when I let her name go, you hold your breath. This is no performance, this is confession. And as each person places the final item, the 7th, into the jar, something shifts in the air. Not magic, not spectacle, just release. You step forward. You hadn't planned to, but your hand is already reaching for your pouch. You pull out the clay tablet. Feel its warmth in your hand. Still blank, still heavy. You look at the jar, then at the sky which has gone overcast without warning, as if something wants to witness this moment with you. You step forward, press your forehead gently to the rim of the jar and whisper, "This is the version I didn't write." Then you place the tablet inside. Not for erasure, but for safekeeping. Behind you, a child tugs on your sleeve. "Did she really come back?" they ask. You kneel beside them. "She did." "But why did she go?" You pause, then answer honestly, "To remember something the sky had forgotten." The child frowns. What did the sky forget? You lean in close as if telling a secret. How to be dark without being empty. They think for a moment, then grin. That's weird. Yup, you say stand in again. Most important things are you return to the crowd which is now circling the jar. Someone is reading a new hymn, not from the temple tablets, but from a fresh clay scroll.
You catch a few lines. She stepped down with her head high and her arms empty, so we would know what surrender could become when held like gold. You glance at the woman reading. She's not a priestess, just someone who lived through something. A widow, maybe, or a mother, or someone who once walked through her own private cur and came back with poems where her lungs used to be. The crowd listens, not as believers, as participants, and you let the words settle inside you like dust on water. In the distance, bells begin to ring, but not from the temple, from homes, small altars, workshops, even the tavern, one chime at a time. No coordination, just response. The myth has moved, left the tablets, abandoned the ziggurat. It now lives in the hands of the people. And maybe that's what Inanna wanted all along, not worship, but witnessing, not devotion, but descendants, people who would carry her story forward, not just with incense and song, but with their own small, crumbling truths. And here, on this road, in this moment of not quite silence, you understand something you didn't when the story began. She didn't walk alone. You've been walking with her the whole time. You stay at the edge of the procession long after it fades. The crowd disperses, drifting back into doorways, into ovens and gardens and unfinished conversations. The clay jar, now full of offerings, memories, the odd broken sandal, sits in the town square like a gentle accusation. No one dares move it. It belongs to something bigger now. You watch a stray dog sniff the base of the jar and, sensing divine weight, wisely back away. Smart dog. You wander. Again. Your feet carry you to a quiet corner of Uruk where few people go, where broken idols lean against cracked walls and half-finished shrines have become homes for spiders. Dust curls like incense through broken tiles. It's peaceful here in the way only forgotten things can be. You sit on a stone. Across from you, someone else is already seated. An old woman, wrapped in layers of shawls and shadows. Her hands are henna-stained and her feet are bare. She's weaving, a circle of fibres tight and precise. Something between a trap and a halo. You don't speak, neither does she. Until you know they never write what happens to her after the woman says, eyes fixed on her hands. Who, you ask, though you already know. Inanna, she replies. They talk about her descent, her return. But what does a goddess do when no one needs her to save the world for a while? You consider that. Maybe she rests. The old woman chuckles, and it sounds like dry leaves. No such thing. Gods don't rest. They wait. They watch. She ties off a knot. They wait to see if we understood. You glance at the woven circle in her lap. It looks familiar, a spiral, 7 turns, 7 gates.
You whisper, is that for her? She nods. It's a door for when she wants to come back through. Easier next time. You don't ask who she is, you know better now. People who matter rarely give names. Instead, you ask, does she miss it? The old woman raises an eyebrow. The underworld, you nod, her hands still. She stares past you, far off into some crack between memory and myth. She misses the silence, she says. Not the hook, not the emptiness, just the stillness, the place where no one asked her to be anything but present. You lean back. So do you now that she mentions it. The underworld wasn't comfortable, but it was honest, and honesty is rare currency in the upper world. You rise slowly, knees popping. The woman hands you the woven spiral. You hesitate. I didn't earn this. She gives you a look that says you sound ridiculous. No one earns dissent, she says. It comes like winter or regret. You take it. It's light.
But it feels heavier than most choices you've made. You walk away back into the city. The sounds of life return, children shouting, merchants bartering, someone yelling at a goat who clearly doesn't care about boundary walls. But everything is softer now, more porous, like the veil between above and below is thinner, like anyone could slip through at any moment, not to disappear, but to know. You tuck the woven spiral into your robe near your ribs, and for reasons you can't explain, you feel braver. At the temple gate, someone calls your name. It's the priestess from before, the one who told you everyone gets their own version. She holds out a wax tablet scribbled over with symbols. They're writing the afterward now, she says. You blink. The what? The part of the story after the return, she explains. No one used to care, but now they want to know what happens when the goddess has to live with everything she saw down there. You take the tablet. It's messy, incomplete. Lines like, she no longer slept through full moons. She kept a bowl of water beside her bed. She would cry sometimes when someone touched her too gently. You read it twice, then again. It's not grand, it's real. And somehow that's more powerful than any lightning bolt or divine tantrum. Because now the story doesn't end when she rises, it continues with silence, with softness, with the fragile, breathtaking work of rebuilding after unraveling. You hand the tablet back. Needs a better title, you say. The priestess laughs. We're working on it. You turn to leave, and as you pass under the archway of the temple, you whisper a thought you didn't know you were carrying. I hope she found peace. And from somewhere deep in the temple, or maybe from the story itself, you hear a whisper back. She found truth. And sometimes that's enough. You dream again that night, not of hooks or gates, not of screams or shadows, but of a quiet road lined with trees that have never grown in Sumerian soil. Their leaves shimmer silver in the dark. Their roots hum like low voices telling secrets. In your dream, you're walking this road barefoot, the spiral from the old woman tucked beneath your arm. It pulses faintly like it wants to speak. Up ahead, there's a woman sitting on a rock. She's plucking seeds from a pomegranate one by one and dropping them into a clay bowl. She doesn't look up as you approach, but she says, "You've come far." You stop, say nothing. She drops another seed into the bowl, but you've still got soil under your nails. You glance down. She's right, you're still carrying something. Earth from the descent, dust from the underworld. You kneel beside her. "Inanna," you ask. She shrugs. Sometimes that's when you see her clearly. Her face changes with every blink, young, old, glowing, scarred, laughing, furious, serene. Not cycling randomly, but revealing layers, like she is many stories at once. And suddenly so are you. She gestures to the bowl. "They never stop falling," she says. You lean closer. The seeds in the bowl aren't seeds. They're moments, memories. Each one pulses with light. Some flash bright births, love, hard-earned peace. Others glow softly, sorrows carried in silence, hands let go. Too soon the last breath before a decision. You understand now? She's gathering, not power, not offerings, but lived truth. What do you do with them, you ask? She finally looks at you. Her eyes are not stars, they are mirrors. I plant them, she says, and sure enough you look behind her and see them growing. Fields of impossible flowers, each one rising from a moment someone survived. A field of what came after. You ask, do they know? She smiles. Some, most don't. Should they? She drops another memory into the bowl. They will. When you wake, your pillow is damp with tears. Not from grief, from recognition. You sit up slowly. The woven spiral from the old woman is still beside you. You carry it as you walk to the temple, not for ritual, not for prayer, just to sit, to witness. The city is stirring. Vendors roll open their carts. Dogs bark at birds. The scent of early bread curls through the air. Life has resumed its noise, but something's changed. A small girl walks past you, wearing a robe made of stitched together fabric scraps. 7 different colors. You recognize them. The gates, she waves. You wave back. Inside the temple, they're crafting something new. A wall of clay bricks, freshly molded, still soft. People line up to press their handprints into it. Some leave symbols, some names, some simply touch. A woman behind you murmurs, "It's the wall of the ones who returned." You step forward. Press your palm into the warm clay. Feel it. Take your shape. And for a moment you feel the goddess again, not beside you, not above, but within. A fringe detail from a tablet comes to mind, one that few people talk about. It mentions how Inanna, after returning from the underworld, would occasionally walk among her people disguised as a mortal. Not to test them, but to learn from them. To see if they had learned to descend on their own. You walk out of the temple barefoot, and with every step you feel it. The gates aren't just in the underworld anymore. They're here, in doorways, in farewells, in new beginnings. Each time you let something go, each time you remove another layer, you descend again. And each time you forgive yourself for it, you rise. No trumpet, no lightning, just the sound of your own breath. And that is the sound of the goddess walking with you. The temple bells ring at twilight, not in alarm nor in celebration. It's something subtler, a call not to gather but to pause, to notice. The sound rolls through the city like a ripple in still water, passing through windows, curling under doors, catching on breath. You stop in the middle of a street, halfway through a bite of roasted fig, and listen. 3 tones, soft, low, certain. You're not the only one who hears it. The woman at the bread stall wipes flour from her hands and stands still. A young boy stops mid-chase. A cat leaps onto a wall and sits like it too, is trying to remember a song it once knew. The sound fades, and everyone continues on, but slower, like the city just exhaled something ancient. You finish your fig and wander toward the old shrine, the small cracked one that no longer has a patron deity. Or so you thought. When you arrive, someone's already there. It's Ninshuba. But not as she was. She's older now, sharper, softer, more of a woman than a title. She's sweeping the shrine's steps. You blink. Since when do high priestesses sweep? She doesn't look up. Since before you thought gods only lived on ziggurats. Touché. You watch her for a while. She's not in a rush. She sweeps like someone brushing sand from memory, slowly, respectfully. She finally says, "You should leave something here." You look around. Why, it's hers now. You blink. Inanna's. She nods. "But this isn't her temple." "Exactly," she says and smiles. You get it. She doesn't need the biggest altar anymore, the main sanctuary, the tallest platform. She's found her way into the forgotten corners. The in-between places, the abandoned spaces where silence is not just tolerated, it's treasured. You step forward, place your hand on the stone, it's warm. You reach into your robe and pull out the woven spiral from the old woman. You've carried it through dreams and waking through dust and celebration. It's softened now, frayed at the edges. You place it on the shrine's ledge. Ninshubur nods once. It's enough. Then she returns to sweeping. You walk back into the city. People are lighting candles on their doorsteps, not in rows, not in patterns, just one candle per house, one tiny flame per story. A woman lights hers, closes her eyes and whispers something you can't hear. A man follows suit, placing a cup of water beside his candle. A child no older than 5 stares at her flame like it's telling her secrets. She giggles, blows it out, then lights it again. This isn't a holiday. There's no name for it yet, but you feel it. The myth is planting itself, not just in memory, but in behavior, in impulse, in the language of daily life. You return to your rooftop, sit under the stars which feel closer now, like they've been watching this whole time, silently approving of your clumsy little revelations. You look down at Uruk, the lights, the people, the myths living in every pause between breath, and you realize something. Inanna didn't rise to resume rule. She rose to step aside, to leave space for us to descend, to return, to carry stories in our bones instead of stone tablets. You smile, because now you understand. There is no after the descent, only ever a next. By now even the sky seems changed. You can't explain it, not with facts or star charts. The constellations haven't moved, but they feel closer, like they're leaning in, listening, as if they've heard the story of Inanna's descent retold so many times this week that they've become invested in the outcome. You walk through Uruk at dawn just before the city blinks awake. This is the hour when the gods stretch, when the clay is still cool, when truth has not yet been burned off by the sun, and it's here in this space that you notice it. The city breathes differently, softer, slower, steadier. People speak in quieter tones. They pause before interrupting. They finish one another's sentences with questions instead of declarations. There is a new kind of reverence now, not just for Inanna, but for what she revealed. You pass by a potter's shop. The door is open early, and a woman inside is shaping a vessel, her hands caked in red clay. It's wide and round like an open mouth. "What is it for you?" asked gently. She doesn't look up. "It's to hold the things we name but don't explain." You pause. "That's vague," she smirks. "Exactly." You chuckle and continue. On the temple steps, a young priestess is writing something onto a palm leaf scroll. The characters are smudged, her fingers stained. She glances up. "Want to help you raise an eyebrow? Help with what? Documenting the version," she says. "We've already got 11 versions of what?" She shrugs. The myth, her descent, how people tell it, how they lived it. She holds up the scroll. You read a few lines. In mine she cried the whole way down, and that was holy. In mine she laughed before they hung her. In mine she never came back, but she sent a seed. Each story is true. Each one contradicts the next, and no one minds. You write your own without thinking. In mine she didn't change the world. She changed me. The priestess nods. "You're number 12. You sit with that. Not the number, the plurality. The idea that a goddess could fracture into so many versions and still remain whole. That truth could splinter and remain intact. A fringe historical idea bubbles up. Some anthropologists argue that myths like Inanna's weren't meant to be singular, that they were ritual scaffolding meant to be performed differently each time, that the only real mistake is trying to freeze them. You suddenly love that theory. You leave the temple with a strange kind of joy in your chest, the kind that isn't loud or triumphant, the kind that hums quietly like a small drum just under your ribs. As you walk, someone calls your name. You turn, it's Dumuzi, or someone playing him. A boy no older than 17, barefoot and flushed. He wears a robe of green reeds, his hair messy with wildflowers. Behind him, a group of girls and boys follow laughing, shouting lines from the story, like misremembered lyrics. She found me on the throne. I begged for mercy. I ran from the gala. They're acting it out again, but this time it's different. This time Dumuzi doesn't scream when he's taken. He sings, a long, mournful note that trails into silence. You watch the crowd fall still, and you realize this is a new version too, not one of punishment, but of understanding. Inanna's fury is no longer a sword, it's a mirror, and Dumuzi, poor tragic Dumuzi, finally looks into it. After the play, the children scatter. The boy who played Dumuzi comes to you panting, face flushed. You watched, he asks. You nod. He grins. Did it work? You tilt your head. What were you trying to do? He shrugs. Make it less about the hook, more about the echo. You blink. Echo, yeah, he says. The sound she made when she came back. I think it's still bouncing around in all of us. Then he runs off barefoot and laughing, and you're left standing in the middle of a city that's no longer simply Uruk. It's layered now, a palimpsest of myth and ritual sorrow and return. You walk home slowly. Every wall, every alley, every candle in a windowsill feels like part of her. And as you reach your door, you realize Inanna isn't worshipped anymore. Not in the old sense. She is lived, not in temples, but in pauses, in laughter that hides pain, in apologies whispered at the gate, in seeds planted when no one is watching, and in the soft, unshakable truth that the descent never truly ends. It just shifts. And we walk with it. The next morning you don't open your eyes right away. You lie, still listening, to the city breathing beneath you, to the wind shifting through open shutters, to the faint sound of someone 2 rooftops away singing about gates and stars and a bowl that never filled. It's a good song. You let it wash over you. Eventually you sit up, stretch. The spiral the old woman gave you isn't by your sleeping mat anymore. It's not on the shelf, not tucked in your robe, gone, but you're not panicked. It did its work. And maybe someone else needs it now. You step outside into the street and find that the city has moved forward again just a little. The scent of yeast and river silt hangs in the air. Birds have nested in the alcoves of old shrines. Someone's trying to repair a cracked statue of Inanna using figs and optimism. You smile. Then you head for the river. Because you know what comes next. Today is the last offering day, the end of the descent season, the beginning of the ascent. Not a grand holiday. No one declared it. But people have been whispering about it for days, agreeing without agreement. You arrive to find others already there, each carrying something. A child holds a piece of broken pottery. A baker carries a loaf shaped like a crown. An old man holds a mirror with a crack through it and won't explain why. No one speaks. The river is quiet, slow, respectful. One by one they approach and place their offerings on the water, not thrown, not forced, just released. And you didn't bring anything, or so you thought. but your hand reaches into your robe and finds something tucked deep inside. Not the spiral, not the tablet. It's a gate, a small one, carved from wood. Simple, rough. You don't remember making it, but it's yours. You step forward, kneel at the river's edge and let it go. It floats a little, then turns, then vanishes. And with it, something inside you loosens like a breath you didn't know you were holding, like a memory exhaled. You stand. A woman beside you weeps gently. She doesn't hide it. Another person hums the last line of a hymn. She rises not untouched, but unforgotten. You walk back through the streets. Everyone seems a little taller. Not because of pride, but because of what they've carried and set down. At the edge of the city, a new mural is being painted. You pause to watch. It's not of Inanna on her throne. It's not of her descending. It's her after, barefoot, laughing, hair messy, kneeling beside a stranger. Her robe is wrinkled, there's dirt on her face, and in her hands a bowl, empty but not lacking. You ask the artist, why this image? They dip their brush and smile, because no one tells you what to do after you return. So I figured we should imagine her learning to live again too. You nod and keep walking. Later that evening, someone builds a fire in the square. People gather, not to chant, not to perform, to speak. They take turns. Each one says just one sentence. That's the rule. You hear things like, I left a version of myself at the second gate. My sister never came back, but I think she left the door open. I forgive the hook. It gave me a name. And finally, someone steps forward and says, I'm not afraid of dissent anymore, just of forgetting what I learned there. That one lingers. You say nothing, you don't need to. You've said enough in silence, in gesture, in the way you now carry your body, like it's a story still unfolding. As the fire dies down, someone hands you a scrap of papyrus. It's blank, and suddenly your hands know what to do. You write, the goddess descended. She rose, and then she learned to sit in the sun again quietly, without needing to explain the shape of her shadow. You fold the paper, press it to your heart, and for the first time since all of this began, you feel not healed, not perfect, but anchored. You're no longer falling. You're walking forward. The final week of descent season draws to a close with no fanfare. No temple bell chimes, no priest declares it ended. It simply shifts. The air gets warmer. The nights feel less like thresholds and more like places to rest. You start to sleep through until morning again, and when you dream, it's not of gates or darkness, but of gardens. You wake one morning with soil under your fingernails. You don't ask why. The city, too, begins to change. New murals go up not to overwrite the old myths, but to extend them. A child paints Inanna dancing with Erishkigal. Someone adds a donkey wearing a crown to the corner. It's both irreverent and somehow sacred. You notice more people walking alone. Not in isolation, but in communion. Their posture different, softer, like they've walked a long road inward and returned not triumphant, but truthful. You find yourself at the marketplace one morning, staring at a display of reed baskets. Each one has a symbol burned into the side. One has a spiral, another a broken gate, another simply reads, "You are not what you left behind." You buy that one, because, yeah. You carry it through the streets, weaving among children, playing gala tag, where one kid pretends to be a demon from the underworld and the others try to rescue Dumuzi from imaginary doom. There's a lot of dramatic flailing. It's adorable, And, slightly terrifying, you stop by the bakery where you once saw the bread shaped like a crown. Today it's different. Round loaves, 7 dimples on top, gate bread. The baker, a stout woman with sun-scorched arms and eyes like weathered bronze, nods at you. No more crowns, she says, too heavy. You take a loaf, it's warm. Later you visit the shrine where you left the spiral. It's gone now. But in its place is something new, a bundle of fresh reeds tied with a strip of indigo cloth. A note sits beside it, written in a child's shaky hand, for the next person who forgets they came back. You blink hard, then smile. In the evening you walk the canal road. It's mostly dry, cracked with time, but here and there little shoots of green have pushed through. Life refusing to wait for permission. You kneel and touch the sprout. It's real. You laugh alone. Then look up. The stars are out again, brighter than before, as if the sky too has made peace with the descent. A fringe fact surfaces in some Sumerian calendars. The end of descent season coincided with the rising of a certain star, one they called the Traveller's Eye, a symbol that the cycle had turned, that the journey had changed direction. You stand, because maybe the gates are behind you now, maybe, but you still feel them, in the way your heart beats when you pause, in the way you walk without rushing, in the way you notice absence like it's a companion, not a threat. You arrive at the old ziggurat, the stairs are worn, the torch is dim, and you sit at the top watching Uruk below. The city glows like a myth that never ended. Like something still unfolding, you close your eyes and remember the hook, the descent, the silence, the scream, the ascent, the choice, and now the after. You open your eyes. Someone is climbing the steps behind you. A young girl, barefoot, holding a pomegranate. She sits beside you without a word and splits it open. You take a seed. She eats one, then says, "Did she really come back changed?" You nod, but then you add, "She came back choosing." Choosing what you look at the horizon, to stay. She eats another seed, satisfied with that answer. And together you sit in silence, eating from the fruit of the story. No rituals, no hymns, just this, you, the myth, and the city that never stopped becoming. Tonight, Uruk is still. No wind, no drums, no processions. The air is thick with summer heat, the kind that clings like linen, dampened in dream water. You walk its streets slowly the way one might trace a familiar scar with careful fingers, not out of pain but remembrance. The clay bricks along the temple walls bear new handprints now, hundreds of them, pressed and layered, some small like children's palms, others wide and calloused, none of them labelled, none of them explained. You find yours, not by sight, but feel. The indent fits your palm exactly. You lean into it, closing your eyes, and in that silence you feel the story curl inward like the final petal of a blossom folding into itself after sunset. Not an ending, a soft return. In the distance, someone lights a lantern, then another, not festival fire, not for display, just enough glow to mark doorways, windows, thresholds. Gates, you realize, tiny, flickering gates. One for each person who has walked through the dark and emerged not untouched, but changed. You make your way back to the rooftop where you first watched the dancers perform the descent. The rooftop is empty now, the coals cold, the scarves long since carried away by the wind, but the stones they danced on still hold heat. You sit and let yourself remember, not in the tidy order of myth, but the honest mess of memory. You remember how you stood at the first gate, proud and prepared, still believing you could descend with dignity. You remember how the hook felt, not the pain, but the surprise. You remember the stone in your hand, and the moment you understood that silence could be both void and vow. You remember Erishkigal's scream, and how it didn't terrify you, it welcomed you. You remember walking out again, one gate at a time, bare, but not broken. You breathe. A soft wind stirs, and with it comes a sound, faint at first, then clearer. A woman singing, not a hymn, a lullaby. A melody older than ink, older than story, carried on the breath of thousands of nights. You follow the sound in your mind. It leads you inward, past all the versions of yourself you've walked beside since this story began. The strong one, the scared one, the defiant, the grieving, the one who kept pretending. And now at last, the one who can finally rest. You lie back on the rooftop. Let the stars watch you. They have their own myths. But tonight, they nod gently toward yours. And in the quiet that follows you, offer your final whisper to the sky, I remember her. And from somewhere inside the breeze, so does the dark. Now, slow everything down. Feel the weight of your limbs sinking into the bed. Notice the quiet in the room around you, not the absence of sound, but the presence of stillness, like the stillness of the temple at night, like the moment after the last gate opens. Let your breath ease, no effort, just a gentle tide moving in and out. You've walked far tonight, through stories etched in clay, through silence deep enough to hold screams, through descent, not as punishment but as transformation. Let that settle into your chest now. You've learned that to fall is not failure, that to let go is not weakness, that the goddess walked willingly not to die, but to remember something we forgot, that within darkness lives the space to become more fully ourselves. So let go now, of questions, of roles, of needing to understand every part. There will be time for rising. For now, be like Inanna, resting in the shadow. Be the still water, the unspoken line, the breath between the verses of a myth. Let the soft, dark wrap around you like her robe at the seventh gate. Nothing more to do, nothing more to prove. You have descended, and you are held. Sleep now, dream walker. The story waits in your bones. It knows its way back. End of script. Sweet dreams.